in Oklahoma City at CSAA Insurance Group, a AAA insurer. We often just go by CSAA or AAA Insurance. So if you hear that, that's us. We are presenting this panel along with UCO's Career Development Center. When we were preparing for this, we were trying to decide what we should talk about. And ultimately, we decided we wanted to share information that we have learned along the way of our career journey and what we wish we had known at your age while in college. So we're trying to give you a head start and give you like the cheat code at the very beginning stages or before you even begin. Keep in mind though, these are our individual experiences and there are no two experiences that are alike. However, there are lessons that we've all learned one way or another, either the easy way or the hard way, that we hope that you can learn from as well and apply to your experience. So to begin, I'd like to start by introducing you to the panel. As I said, my name is Sadie Brooks. I am a homeowner claims specialist and I've been with CSAA for 5 years now. Brandy, will you please introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Brandy Fox. I am a non-injury auto supervisor, and in October of this year, I will have been with the company for 15 years.
Great. And James, will you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is James Hollier. I'm a supervisor here at AAA. I've been here 10 years, going on 11 this year.
And Ronnie?
Hello, I'm Ronnie Clayton. I'm a service consultant, and I've been with AAA for 9 years in April.
And Tiara?
Hi, my name is Tiara Brown, and I've been with CSAA for going on 6 years. And also I am in the IT department as an analyst.
And then Sarah, do you want to give yourself a quick introduction as well?
Sure. I'm Sarah Moore. I work in the Career Development Center in the Nye University Center, room 338. I've been at UCO for just over 9 years. So.
All right, so before we get started with the panel, we are going to have a question and answer portion. So if you have any questions, you can just put them in the chat and we'll be sure to answer them whenever we get to that portion. So let's go ahead and get started. The first topic that we're going to talk about is controversial, but I think in a good way. So we're going to talk about networking. Networking is one of those things that you either hate it or you love it. For me, I actually love it. I think that's just my personality and natural inclination to be curious. Some people may call it nosy, but I'm curious about, who people are and what they do. Everybody has their own definition of networking. I know some people hear it and they think of, a conference with hundreds of people and you're shaking hands and you're exchanging business cards, but that's not necessarily how I think of it. I think that's one way to network. For me, networking is making connections with people that I may be able to help or who may be able to help me, or making connections with people who have a common interest as me. And for me, networking can be as simple as talking to the person next to me in a meeting or as intentional as using LinkedIn. So that's what I have. But Tiara, what is networking to you?
Networking to me is pretty much exactly what you stated. I feel like networking is pretty much building relationships with people from different backgrounds, different skill sets with different knowledge, just pretty much a diverse group of people who have pretty common goals as yourself or have different knowledge base than what you currently have. And so when you're building networking, you can just be, like Sadie stated, it could just be a small general conversation or just a friendly conversation when you're having with other people and just listening to their testimonies, listening to what they've been through, what they've gone through and explain to where they're actually leading towards. And so you can explain yourself as well what you've been through in the last few years or what you're currently going through and explain that to other people. And they can use that knowledge and understand your skill set. And that could be something that could build a relationship later down the line. You can build trust with them. And also it could bring something to where you may be able to have upper mobility, or also it could be something that could be a business partnership. You never know, but it's building trust with other people, building great relationships with people. One of the situations where I can say that you can have a great time with building actually is when you're dealing with projects. If you could be a lead in a project, just knowing exactly what others could bring to the table is awesome. Just knowing the right people that can be on your team. And that can go also for yourself. So when you know exactly what you're capable of, others will also bring you to the table as well. So networking can start at an early age. It doesn't have to necessarily be something when you get out of college. It could be something that you can deal with today. And you never know what that relationship may bring out in a in the long run for yourself.
Brandy, going to you now. What do you think about networking?
I am actually one of those people who does not like networking. It's interesting because my dad's one of those people who can walk into a room and talk to anyone. I don't have that kind of personality. I tend to stand back and kind of observe people before I just start chit-chatting. So for me, networking is a bit different. What I tend to do is I let other people network for me. So it kind of goes back to what Tiara was saying when it comes to working on projects. As a supervisor, I'm actually on quite a few projects. So what I do whenever I get put on a project is make sure that I show up, make sure I'm prepared. And if I have something that is that I need to do, I make sure it's done and it's on time and hopefully done right. And so I rely on the people that I'm building the relationships with on the project to kind of remember what my skill set is, as well as my manager who will recommend me for projects that come up. Because then she's like, hey, Brandy has that skill set. And so what she'll do is she'll say, she'll be great for this project. And so that's how I kind of get out of what I call your personal bubble. When you get into a field, you kind of stick around in your department. But in order to network, one of the things that you will find out is you need people in other departments to know your name, especially if you decide you want to move up the company ladder, you want to move over into a different field, which Tiara will touch on a little later. So there's just different ways that you can go about meeting people. And she's right. Now is a perfect time for you guys to go ahead and start networking in college, because you don't know what the person next to you is going to go on to do with their career. So it's a perfect time to start building those relationships with the people that you know, because in the end, you may end up needing them, or they may be great for a project that you end up working on.
I completely agree. I wish I definitely would have networked more in college. I actually don't think I talked to anybody that I went to college with, which is kind of disappointing to say out loud, but definitely like start now, because you're going to end up all over the country in all different fields. And like Brandy said, you never know when you can use each other. And just kind of tying it back, all of the panelists like Kara, Tiara, Brandy, Ronnie, and James, we actually met because we're part of the Black Employees Association. So we met, but we're all within different levels and different departments within the company. We reach out to each other all the time. I know when I have a policy services question, I'll reach out to James or Ronnie, or if I need a supervisor opinion, I'll reach out to Brandy. And so we just kind of work together that way. I think another thing I briefly touched on, so not only, Brandy and Tiara touched on, so it's a good time to network now while you're in college, but I also think LinkedIn is a very good way to network, especially if you don't like it. And because we're not in person as much as we used to be, we don't have those same opportunities. Everybody is virtual. And it's actually crazy. So I got LinkedIn like when it first came out, however many years ago that was. So I have all these connections, but I've never really used it or knew what to do with it. I had a meeting 2 weeks ago with a member of our talent acquisition team, and she was telling me the importance of LinkedIn and how recruiters are so active on LinkedIn, and they'll reach out to people. Even if you're not looking for a job, they still may reach out to you based on your profile to see if they can, persuade you to join the team. And I've even talked to other employees at CSAA who have said like, yeah, I was on LinkedIn and a recruiter reached out to me. So she worked with me to help me update my profile and make sure it truly represents who I am, what I like to do, what I can do. And I am part of a program where I have an executive sponsor, and she actually set up a meeting for me with another executive. And through that, it was, like, hey, I'm interested in your department. Can you like point me in who I should talk to and connect with based on the skills that, I told you I have. And he then set up 2 more meetings for me. And sure enough, one of those people I can see has viewed my LinkedIn profile. So I'm glad I updated it just 2 weeks ago, because you never know when you need to make that connection or who's, paying attention. So speaking of that, I think it kind of leads into building a brand. And as you're networking, and like Brandy said, you know, she's on a lot of projects and she gets known for certain skills and things like that. Branding yourself is very important. For example, the AAA brand is known to help others in their time of need, most commonly with, you know, roadside service or discounts, even though we have insurance as well. Branding, like I said, it's just instantly recognizable. So for me, I would say that my brand is helping others and being a problem solver. And because I've made my brand known to others through like the types of organizations I join, the projects I complete, and the work that I do, people are able to think of me when it comes to like certain opportunities. And oftentimes, because of like my brand and being true to who I am and what I like, I have multiple people who will approach me about the same opportunity because they thought of me. So James, can you tell us about your personal brand and how you kind of went about creating it?
Yeah, sure. I will say this, just to start, and especially as you're thinking about what's next after college. The brand is probably one of the hardest things to say. This is what I stand for, and it does evolve over time. I had no idea. I'll tell you the first time that anybody ever asked me what my brand was, and that was during my first supervisor meeting interview. Last question, what's my brand? Right before, what's my elevator speech? And both, I had no clue. I struggled in that time to figure out what what does that mean? Okay, then now what's my brand? But over time, through interactions, through just like Sadie and Brandy kind of said, that exposure to different parts of people and the business, you start to kind of figure out, okay, what is it that I'm good at? What do I want people to know as I walk to and away from them? What do I want to leave them with? And it took quite a long time because you want to position your brand and say, oh, if I say this brand out loud, I want the business to know me. And I spent a lot of time trying to impress the business, and I had a very bad brand. However, when I changed my brand to something I felt like I was good at and I had a passion for, which now my brand is, if you want to be successful, follow me. I'll show you the way. And that really starts with the conversations I have with the people that come to my team. And one of the things I challenge them to do is, if you want my position, if you want my seat, come get it. I'll show you how to take my job. And it's not a common thing to do, but I think it helps people accelerate their thought process about what their brand is, what they're good at, and how they want to kind of approach that through experience and exposure.
I know you mentioned, you know, your elevator speech. I feel like that's another word or another phrase where it just causes anxiety immediately because you're just like, oh my gosh, like what is an elevator speech? What do I say? And again, it's just, you know, a quick little blurb of who you are, what you like to do, where you're going, quick enough that you can say it on an elevator ride. So Tia, do you have any thoughts about your brand or an elevator speech?
Yeah, so like you said, branding is something that you have to do immediately. It's something that you learn to do. And when I started branding myself, I learned that it's not all about who you talk to. Sometimes it's about what they can bring out of you, because you may not see it at the moment in time of what you're capable of doing. It's pretty much, you have to build that relationship with people and that trust, and then they can show you exactly what you're capable of, and then they eventually put you in places where you would have never thought that you would be put there. And so when I was in my situation, when I was younger, I was a young woman and I had young kids at the time when I was in college. I never would have thought that at that moment in time that I would actually be in the position that I'm at right now. And so after talking and communicating with people, I knew at the moment in time when I was younger that I wanted to help people, but I didn't know exactly how the way I wanted to do it. And I also wanted to be a leader. But sometimes being in the right place in the right time and knowing how you can talk to people and what they can bring out of you, it puts you in a position to where it could be something great and something bigger in the long run later down the line. So it's all about, when you're branding, like you said, James, it's all about talking to the right people, having conversation with people on a daily basis, and just building trust. And then also trusting yourself. And once you start to trust yourself, you become something bigger than what you actually expect.
I think too, even not only like learning to trust yourself and finding what you like, finding what you do not like. I think that that's important as well. But even learning to trust yourself, it just allows you to do so much more. So not only creating your brand, but it allows you to have this idea of making the ask. And that is something that you definitely have to like build up to and kind of have that confidence and understand who you are. And I'd say making the ask is, going for those positions that you wouldn't normally go for because you think that you're underqualified, or, you may not meet all of the qualifications, or maybe you think you're overqualified, or, maybe you want to negotiate your salary and you're not sure how to approach it. I think, making the ask, it kind of leads into this idea of asking for yourself, but then also having to deal with imposter syndrome, which that is when you doubt yourself and you don't think that you're accomplished enough for whatever project that you're dealing with. And I think it's something that we all, well, I know everybody on this panel, we all deal with it. We talked about it in preparation. I think it's even something to just be transparent. I'm dealing with it right now. Like there's that inner critic in my head that's saying, like, oh, you haven't done enough to be on this panel. Your career journey hasn't been long enough to have something to say or a lesson to learn. So it's just a matter of trying to, quiet that voice. And here I am, we're out here. And then also, like James and Tiara said, you have to have people in your corner. I know on the days where I feel like I'm not good enough, I can turn to my mentors and my peers, many who are on this panel, just say like, look, I'm really struggling with this. What are your thoughts on it? And they can, remind you or remind me who I am, what I've done, and that I'm absolutely capable of, moving forward, and don't let my imposter self get to me. So Kara, do you have any thoughts about imposter syndrome?
Yes, hello, my name is Kara Scott. I manage the glass claims unit for CSAA. I've been with the company for a little over 10 years, and even in my career, every step of the way, I have encountered imposter syndrome. It's something that I feel like is natural but more prevalent with women, Black and Brown individuals might encounter this situation more often than not. But I always have to remind myself, like, what's the answer to the question? So the question that causes the imposter syndrome is, am I qualified? Well, who better? Who else is qualified? Who better to do this job than you? And if there's someone else, what sets them apart from you? And so I start answering those questions for myself, and that helps me get past that. Why me? Why not me? I was in another conference, video conference, a day ago, and one of the individuals that spoke up talked about raising his children and how he has to encounter those big, loud voices that his children have to face in the outside world. And he just wants to be that small voice that's encouraging them in their head every day. And he talked about how this small voice has to combat that. And I hang on to that as well. I remember back when I was growing up, the things that my parents would do to encourage me, down to the point where my mother would have just paintings and artworks of beautiful, successful Black women around the house to remind me of what that looks like. So I hold on to that small voice versus the, negative inner critic to help get me past that imposter syndrome.
I like that. I think that ties in the idea of, representation matters. What you see around you or have seen in the past, that matters. And again, it's like, I'm on this panel, I see people who look like me, who are ahead of an entire department or supervising team. And it's like, okay, like I can do this. Now we have, the Vice President of the United States, where it's like, oh, she looks like me. So if she can do it, not to say that it won't be easy or there won't be struggles, but it can be done, one situation at a time. Ronnie, do you have any thoughts on imposter syndrome?
Yes, I do. It's like you said, we're our own worst critic. And sometimes people see things in us that we don't see or always want to recognize in ourselves. Um, Mine was, I was asked to do a rotation, which I'm currently doing in IT. And, um, IT, when I used to think of IT, I always thought about, oh, I have to be a nerd. I have to know how to do all this stuff. I have to play video games. I have to be, but it it turned out that you don't have to be, so it's one of those things where, you know, you utilizing your resources, and moving forward and doing things of that nature, um, you can learn anything that you can set your mind to. Don't listen to that voice that tells you you can't. Find a way that you can, you know, and trust in those people who trust in you, because you also have to think about it. If someone comes to you and they have that trust in you, they've seen something previously that they know that you can do. You may not be able to do it or have the knowledge to do it, but they know that you have that competitive spirit, that you're going to find a way to do it. You're going to excel, you know. So I used to struggle with that. And one of my supervisors told me, I'm a former athlete. Uh, yeah, I've retired from that long ago. But in college, I played basketball. So she said that was one of the things that she noticed, that I was always competitive, in anything we did. If it was adding a car to a policy and servicing, I want to be the first one done, but I want to do it right. So um, things like that. And so it brings out something inside of you. Not everyone has to be the best at, recognizing tables or graphs or whatnot, things of that nature. But if you can put your mind to it, set your mind to it, you can accomplish it. And, like I said, don't let that inner voice speak to you and tell you that it's not possible. Anything is possible that you can put your mind to, and you work hard at it. It's not going to be given to you. It can be put before you, but it's up to you to move forward with it. And so, yeah, that was one of the things I used to struggle with. And especially, like I said, coming to this IT role, is rotations. And when I first got there, I was thinking, oh my God, I don't know what all these different programs and these different apps are. But I was given that information, so it was there. Your resources, again, utilize those resources. Resources aren't just, you know, uh, apps or whatnot that people give you. Resources are people you talk to daily, people across from you right now, people in front of you on the screen or whatnot. So utilize those resources in any shape, form, or fashion that you can to help yourself excel and succeed, and kind of remove those doubts from your mind.
I like that. And like I said, I really like all of us, just being so open and transparent about what works for us, because this is something that everybody deals with. I know I've been in other meetings where this topic was brought up, and the idea of doing like the Superman pose, or imagining the person you want to be and stepping into that before you go into a meeting and before you go into the project. I want to get other panelists' opinions as well, because what I'm hoping is that if you're watching this, between all of us, you identify with something in one of us that will help you. So James, what are your thoughts on imposter syndrome?
I think it's very real. And I think that it affects us all differently based on what type of imposter we're being at the moment. But I can tell you from my seat and from my experience just recently, I mean, it can be viewed as both positive and then also a negative experience. I think you have to assume some things. If you're going out there and you're taking a risk in your career and you're saying, I'm gonna try something new, have no experience in this area, well, yeah, you have to put on some airs in order to feel like you belong at the table. I think that's the biggest thing when we talk about imposter syndrome. It's not, I don't feel like I'm adequate, I don't feel these things or other. I think sometimes, and I can speak for me, sometimes for me, it is I don't feel like I fully belong at the table. Well, I don't think that my thoughts are in line sometimes with the initiatives or the leaders of that thought group. And I can tell you, AAA has changed. It's evolved over time. And so there was a time when popularity got you promoted. But that has since gone away. And now they're looking for the people who are thought leaders. And those thought leaders are being, their brains are being picked. And so you're immediately placed in a situation where I was just doing A yesterday, and I was really comfortable doing that because I knew what I was doing. And then you're given an opportunity to say, "Hey, James, you want to try this?" It could expose you to some business. It could give you some time to think about how you can improve yourself, and it will be uncomfortable. And you have to make a decision because you're going to tell, just like Ronnie said, you're going to tell yourself, "No, I've never done that. I see who's involved in this project, and I don't know that I can meet their expectations." That comes to mind, and it's real, y'all. And as you graduate and go into the workforce, you're going to experience it. Don't let it discourage you. Yes, there's negatives to everything, but sort of like what Ronnie said, you're just going to have to take a chance. And part of taking the chances is understanding that people know you don't know what you signed up for. They know it. And if you are that type of person where you put it on the line every day, and your work ethic is that, and you bring value to the table when you do speak and you do have ideas, people will think of you, and they will know, okay, I can work with James. He has some bones here we can build on, and there's some things he doesn't know, so I'll partner him with this person. And I think that I think that's the key of entering and exiting imposter syndrome. Because you got to exit it sometimes. You've got to feel comfortable. Otherwise, you're going to see that meeting and it's going to cause anxiety because I don't want to talk about this today. And that happens to me today, actually, because it was with a group of folks who are heavy thinkers, and I didn't think I could compete with them. It turns out I got into the meeting and I kind of, put trust in myself, and I was able to contribute in a thoughtful way, and that felt good. So again, trust yourself. Imposter syndrome is real. You can live it in if you want to. It's much more fun if you recognize when you're in it and quickly trying to find a way out of it. And that out of it is it kind of ties everything we talked about today. It's that networking, it's the branding, finding your why, talking to people, and being honest. I think the biggest thing is being honest with yourself. Once you're being honest with yourself, I think it opens you up to people's feedback, that you can honestly take it and take action with it. But having those people in your circle of influence that are willing to tell you the truth, even when they know it's going to hurt your feelings, that's what you need. That's kind of the toolkit you need to exit the imposter syndrome.
I like all of that. I think, and then even just kind of tying it in, don't live there. Like you can visit, but you definitely can't live there. You might have to go back. But again, we're not staying there. And there are times where, you could be doing everything right, where you've been networking. So, you know what your brand is, you have people networking on your behalf. And I think back in the day, we had, which I had an illustration for this. So back in the day, we had what was called a career ladder, where you graduated college, you got an entry level position, you moved up to supervisor and then CEO, and you just kept going up and up until you retired. Now we have something that looks more like a career lattice, where you can go up, you can go down, you can make lateral moves, you can go back down. Like the possibilities aren't endless. And um, it is it's interesting because I feel like not enough people are talking about that right now. I know for me, it was like, oh yeah, I'm about to get out of college, get this good job, work my way up. And that's just not what has happened. Even recently, like within the last couple of years, I worked up to a position that was like my dream job at the time. And then was later moved to a different department, which was a lateral move, and I was not happy about it. And it seemed like, I was angry and it was like the end of the world. And since then, I've actually been able to, reflect on it and realize it's probably one of the best things that's happened to me, because with that, I was able to gain those skills, but then also realize I didn't even like that position that I was in. But it allowed me to regroup, evolve my brand, and now focus on things and projects that I actually like to do and put my passion in. And every experience is valuable. So, Ronnie, can you tell us about your non-traditional, that's the term that people are using now, but non-traditional career path?
It's definitely, mine is very non-traditional. After college, you know, I had hopes and dreams of doing everything. You know, it was what was written out, what you read in books or saw in movies, but doesn't happen that way. I ended up working at a paper mill for 10 years. While I was working at the paper mill, made great money. So I thought, hey, I'll stay here and just retire. I lived in a small town, so that was what, you know, if you worked at the paper mill, you were like, oh, he's doing great for himself. And, you know, we'll say, I'll just say late 90s, early 2000s. I don't want y'all trying to guess my age. So I was there at this paper mill, and back then, you know, making $60,000, like, oh yeah, I can do it. And I lived in a small town where the cost of living was very minimal. I did get sick at one time, and I was off, and so my doctor told me it would be a good idea not to continue that job because it was 12-hour shifts, rotating shifts. If you've ever been in a paper mill, there's a lot of paper dust. You breathe that stuff in, you know. So at that time, I had Hodgkin's lymphoma. It was a form of cancer. So after that, I was told, you know, my doctor said, if you want to recover fully, you know, may find a different line of work. Just so happened that we changed owners, and they offered a buyout, which I took. So moved on from there. Ended up just at home for a little while. My cousin said, hey, you know, you want to help me, you know, transport some cars? I was like, yeah, cool, I can do that. Started transporting vehicles for a little buy here, pay here dealership. Well, it's they're in different states, but did that for a little while. You know, then I realized, hey, I need to get a real job. Jobs kind of came hard to find in that area, so I went from transporting vehicles to being a detailer at the same car lot. I was cutting grass and detailing. So mind you, I go from making $60,000 a year to making minimum wage, cutting grass and washing cars. So I did that for a few years, and this comes with, as Brandy spoke to earlier, you know, kind of people networking for you. The general manager, he saw, he was like, hey, you're not detail material, you're not car wash material, cutting grass, I need you inside. So I moved up, you know, inside to accounts, and then ultimately to service manager. Moved on then and became a general manager at a different car lot. Then I decided that just wasn't for me, and I left, and that's when I moved here to Oklahoma City. Didn't have a job, didn't know what I was going to do. Had family that worked for AAA and said, hey, we're having a job fair. So I showed up, got hired. And so, you know, I'm thinking, I don't know anything about insurance. I just know that I need it. State requires it. You know, went through that. And so started out in servicing, and just like I said, you know, showing up every day, daily, as James mentioned earlier, showing up, and people recognize your brand. You know, you build your brand. So showing up daily, doing my work, helping others. I wasn't always the one that would reach out to people. I wanted to figure it out myself, you know, and utilize my resources. So then, you know, supervisors would come to me and say, hey, can you do this project? Can you do this, you know, that? Can you help train on this? You know, then I was moved to a specialized team, to a system that we were moving to. And there was 12 of us. So ultimately, after doing that for a couple of years in servicing, I was like, hey, I'm not built to take 100 calls a day, 7,500 calls a day. I got to do something else. So I went on to, our system is called PAS. And so I was later moved to a position in PAS support. So that was like opening defects for that system and whatnot, resolving those. Did that for 3 or 4 years. And I'm thinking, you know, I need to do something else. You know, you get to that point where it's you feel like I'm at a standstill. I'm getting complacent. I need to do something. So I made a lateral move and went to another department. It was lateral, no pay increase. And some of my colleagues told me, hey, you're committing career suicide. Don't do that. It worked out well for me. I was able to train that team in different things and, that I had learned in previous roles. So it's not always that you go, like I said, you're not going up the next rung on the ladder. Sometimes you have to go sideways. Sometimes you have to go down, across, and then back up. But ultimately, if you keep working at what you're doing, keep building yourself, you'll get back to that point. And, like now, I was asked to do the rotation because my old supervisor, past sports supervisor, she was like, hey, this would be a good fit for you, as well as my supervisor. She's like, look, you need to apply for that rotation. That's you. You need to do that. So I've been doing that for a year now, and it's being extended out. So hopefully, it can become a permanent thing. But yeah, going from college and thinking, because I went on an athletic scholarship, and having those big dreams as a kid to be, on TV, doesn't always work that way. Get your education, focus on that. These are the best days of your life. Even though we're in this pandemic now, enjoy school, grasp everything you can, take it all in, network, everything that we've talked about, it kind of ties it, not kind of, it does tie in together. So, network as much as you can, and brand yourself. People will notice that, they will see that. And, just continue to work hard at what you do. You may get knocked down a couple of times, continue to move on.
Get back up. Yeah, I like on your journey. I feel like I learn something new about you every time I talk to you. But I like on your journey where you said yes. Sometimes, people approach you about projects, say yes. Obviously, they think that you're qualified. Or if you end up not saying yes, don't let it be because, you don't think you're qualified. But, say yes. I know that's worked for me. Kara, really quickly, do you have any thoughts about the career lattice and, non-traditional path?
Yeah, my life is non-traditional. I am a UCO alum. So I went to school. I actually got my esthetician's license at 16. So I thought I'm going to be a makeup artist. And that was before makeup was a big thing. I'm old. So back in the day, like it was just kind of nobody knew what a makeup artist did. So I was like, I want to be a makeup artist, but my parents are like, you got to go to school. So went to UCO and I thought, I love art. I'm going to do art. That's my thing. And then when I graduate, I'm going to be an artist. And I'm going to work at a specific makeup counter and it's going to be a success. And then I'm going to go off and be this big makeup artist, blah, blah, blah. So I got to working at a makeup counter and I discovered I don't like working at a makeup counter because I don't like selling product. Like I love painting faces. I love painting in general. I'm not a seller. And so I thought I need something else. And I also need money. So like a lot of college students, you want a job like that's going to pay. And so my aunt actually hooked me up with a job with a tobacco company. And I thought, like, this job pays really well. They're going to move me out of Oklahoma. And at that time, the big thing was like to move to Texas. So I was like, yes, I'm going to move to Texas. I'm going to be a success. They moved me to the smallest town in Texas, in the middle of Texas, nowhere. I didn't have a lot of people that looked like me, so it was very isolating. And I worked a lot. I dedicated a lot of my weekends and things like that for this salary that I thought at the time paid really, really well, only for them to eventually eliminate the position. And then I felt like I can't go back to Oklahoma. I can't go back to Oklahoma as a failure. I'm going to be an artist, and move to St. Louis. Well, I didn't know anybody in St. Louis, so I settled for Kansas City. So I moved to Kansas City, and I was a starving artist, and I did not like starving. So because of that, I decided that I need to move back home and I need to regroup. And I also understood that couple of things. I'm never not going to be an artist. So I'm going to have to figure out how I can insert myself into a field that, one, values me, pays me enough, and is invest in my development, and also likes the fact that I'm an artist and weird and uses that to their advantage. And so I thought about those things when I was applying for different positions and when I went on interviews, and I was very transparent. Hey, I want to work for a company that's going to invest in my growth, that I want to grow with, and I will be loyal to you. And so that's where I'm here right now. But I did want to share with you a quote that I love from Cicely Tyson, rest in peace. Challenges make you discover things about yourself that you never really knew. They're what makes the instrument stretch, what makes you go beyond the norm. If I didn't have those challenges, that the starving artist, the failure of not having a job at one point, I don't think that I would have been stretched to understand what best fits for me and to find a company to work with that best fits my needs. So that was my story. I don't know if I answered your question, Sadie, or if I should elaborate more, but that's it.
I love it. It's again, Carrie, you're one of those people too. I'm like, how does she find time to do all of this? Like, it's so entertaining, which I'm sure for you at the time it was not, but it's entertaining to hear your story and how you ended up here, back in Oklahoma, home. So Pierre, before we end up in the Q&A portion of this and close it out, tell us about your journey.
Yeah, mine is non-traditional too. It's kind of what Kara said earlier. She mentioned how she had pictures all over the wall, and she had women that seemed like they had been through so much in their life and they showed power. I didn't have that as a child. I didn't have any of that. My mother, I was the first generation of actually graduating on both sides of my family. So I didn't have any kind of foundation that was for me when I was growing up. So I ended up having children at a young age. I was 19 having my first kid, and I had a second one at 20. And so at that time, my parents told me that you weren't going to make it far in life because you have kids. And so that stuck in my head for a very long time, thinking I wouldn't be able to make it. And so I had to get past that fear. I had to get past that doubt. I had to get past all of that. And eventually I said, you know what? I have to put my foot down. Today is not the day. So I worked hard every single day for my children before I went to college. And then afterwards, I had to continue working. I worked for fast food. I worked for Wendy's for 8 years, making minimum wage. And I worked long nights, didn't get off until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then had to get right back up and get to work to go to school at 8 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 7. And I just continued the process until I got over that hurdle. It wasn't easy, but it was definitely something that I learned from, and I love that I had to go through that experience. And I don't want that, everyone has to go through that, but sometimes you just got to go through the hard stuff. Go through the hard stuff early, and then once you go through that, you're able to see something better in your life eventually. So I said to myself, I'm going to go ahead and break this generational curse. I'm also going to be that person that's going to change the narrative in my life, and also in my family. I'm going to make sure that my kids understand that you have to build yourself. You have to kind of go through the hurdles in order for you to have a better outcome. So yes, I did graduate, and I eventually said that I got through that hurdle, and I said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save the world. And me saving the world was actually working with people who had mental illnesses. So I decided to move from West Virginia, is where I got my degree in. I ended up moving to Oklahoma, thinking I was going to save the world of Oklahoma. And when I moved here, I got hit in the face so fast that that was not the case. I started work. I continued on working with Wendy's, and then I moved on to working with mental illnesses. And I was actually doing groups and therapy and all of that. It just did not work for me. I quickly realized that that was just not for me. And I did not like the process. And I just kind of just said, you know what, this is it. I have to kind of move on. And I eventually found CSAA. And what Kara said earlier, she said that you want to find someone that actually values you and also wants to develop and wants to invest in your career. I found that quickly. And so me moving on to CSAA, it was obviously less than, because I just thought that I was always going to be working with people with mental illnesses, and it just didn't work out that way. I'm like, how did I get here? And as I continue on with my career, I noticed that I was still helping people. It was a part of me. I continued on networking. I also was developing myself, and then I was also helping with developing other people. So it was a part of me. And I say this to you, when you get to that point where you go ahead and move on to your career, be a sponge, get past the fear part. That's ultimate. Number one, get past the fear and then become a sponge. You're never going to know everything when you start off, ever. And so once you get past that you start to learn, you start to gain knowledge, you get to know people, you will start to see that you are going to be bigger than what you expect. Just continue on doing that on a daily basis. And networking does not start once you get to an actual higher position or leadership. Networking is every day. It's you do it in your personal life. You do, building relationships with other people in business, and also in your actual job that you have. You constantly do it all of your life. It just does not stop. It's a starting point of your life, but you have to continue on to be to network with people, because you never know what you may get out of that relationship. And it could be a long-term relationship. It could be friendships. It could be business partnerships. It could be all kinds of different things. So be a sponge at everything that you do. Just learn every single day. And that's something that I pretty much did. I learned every day. Never thought that I would be in IT. I'm currently in IT right now. I started off in claims and moved up, and I thought I was going to be a supervisor. And I always wanted to be a supervisor, but it just didn't happen that way. And I quickly realized that I don't think I ever want to be a supervisor. That's just not a part of my end game. So I said, you know what, I need to start talking to people that have different roles and different backgrounds, and started to see that yesterday was definitely not for me being a supervisor. I noticed that there was other opportunities out there that could provide something for you. And so I decided to talk to someone, and I actually got the position from someone from DEA. She actually works in Arizona. Just having that conversation with her, she said, hey, there's some positions open. She saw something in me before I even saw it. And so having that conversation with her and just continuing just to follow up. And that's key too. Follow-ups is key. You constantly got to do follow-ups on, and if you want something really bad. So you got to have to make an ask. You got to get past the actual fear. You got to negotiate. And so at that point in time, I said, hey, I'm looking for something different. And she said, well, there's something here. And never would have thought that I would be in IT. And I didn't think that I would ever be qualified. And at that moment in time, when I got there, she said, hey, don't worry about the small stuff. You are already in it. You have it. I saw something in you. The people that interview you, they saw something in you. We love your personality, and all the other stuff comes along with it. We have the resources that we have to be able to educate you. You're going to have time to even learn different things every single day. So when you get that position, just get your foot through the door, then be a sponge, then utilize that information, and you'll see your stuff starting to roll. You'll start to see different positions that come to you, and people are going to start asking for you. They're going to start bringing you up in conversations. They're going to bring you to the table. So remember that, be a sponge and get past the fear.
I remember talking to you when you're like, yeah, I'm going to have to step down as co-lead from BEA. I'm moving into IT. And I was like, oh, I didn't know you had like an IT background. You were like, girl, I don't. I was like, well,
do not.
All right, that works. You're like, but I had claims background, and that's what they needed. And I was like, wow, I would never, because of what you did, it was like, oh, I'm never going to count myself out from a department because
Yeah.
I don't think I have the traditional background. So before we head into Q&A and wrap things up really quickly, another thing I want to call out is our backgrounds and our virtual presence. I think that's so important as we move into a virtual world. Everybody who's on camera, you can see we either have a virtual background or just a plain background. So that way there aren't any distractions. I know I've been on panels before or I've been in audience and I've seen like kind of like a dirty room in the background and laundry and things like that. And you just have to be cognizant of, again, even what you're presenting virtually matters. So with that, Sarah, would you like to talk about some resources Career Development has before we see if there's any questions?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, let me just tell you from the bottom of my heart, thank you all for sharing your stories and being here. It was so beautiful, and you're singing my song, and it's so nice to hear and so grateful. So thank you so much. And one of the best reasons why this is so important is that career development is about these conversations that you're having, these topics that you're sharing, your journeys. This is what we need to get out about career development. It's not about getting just the resume put together and preparing for the interview and figuring out what people want to hear and writing the right cover letter. It's about you getting comfortable with you and being able to show up and then being able to speak from your place right now and knowing that it's good enough. Like, who you are is good enough, and we can keep morphing and growing and changing and moving. And so we've got to shift from, and I loved hearing all your experiences. I too I'm not from Oklahoma. I moved here and have just as many zigs and zags and can relate so much to a lot of your stories. I too have, a creative side to me, and I have a deep desire to heal and help people. But there are so many ways in which we can do this. And I often joke that the reason that I had to try all those jobs in my 20s was so I could talk to people about it in my 30s and 40s. So I think they all have reasons and purposes, but I loved, Ronnie, your story where you said, I had this image of what I wanted to be was what I saw, right? What was on TV, what was in the movies. And that hasn't changed. We still have those inside of us, or we have visions based on what our people of power have said or told us. That doesn't change, but what can change is your vision. And we have all these media forms, all these resources, as you all talked about, that can help you morph your image and your role in this world in ways that we can start projecting who we want to be and become in a much more visual way than we ever could before. And so getting individuals to play with that and to really explore and sit with it, like you all talked about, is where we're at and what we do in our office. So yeah, we have a whole website, we have a virtual career center, there are traditional methods in which we have to navigate systems, but that should not negate who you are and how you go through the journey and how you reflect and believe in yourself on this journey. And so that's one of the most important things. And you all just nailed it. I have like so many, great. I took notes and it's beautiful. So grateful for you. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah. And again, career development, if you come in person, we are on the 3rd floor of the NI, but you can reach us virtually, careers@uco.edu, careers.uco.edu, either way. Thank you all.
I love it. Before we head out, does anybody have any questions for any of the panelists? I didn't think I saw any in the chat.
Yeah, I don't see any either.
Well, cool.
Can I interject and add a couple of things? Because I feel like sometimes we get hung up on keywords like networking and elevator speech. Networking is a conversation. It's just a conversation of you getting to know someone else. Elevator speech is not like, hi, my major is my dada. No, elevator speech can happen at any time. You see someone that you know is in a position that can help you, take that opportunity right then and there. Hey, how are you? My name is this. This is what I'm interested in. I feel like this relates to what you can do for me. How can I help you? How can you help me? Those type of things, make it a conversation. Don't make it a big like thing in your head, like I've got to do my elevator speech right now. Like that's, I think that's where I went wrong as an undergraduate, is I thought of networking as this big thing, this big task that I had to do. And now that I'm in it, I understand networking is just me getting to know you and getting to know how we can help each other through this big thing we call life.
I love that. I think that's a great way to sum it up. Get out your bubble, say yes, don't let your fears stop you, and you'll land on your feet. Maybe some bumps along the way, but it all works out in the end. So on behalf of all of the panelists, CSAA, UCO Career Development, thank you for joining us for the Reclamation of Career Prosperity. Oh, and connect with me on LinkedIn. Bye, guys.
Bye, you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.